Welcome back to another episode of On the Subject. I'm your host, Michael Vilardo, co-founder and CEO of subject.com. You know where to find us. And we have an incredible guest here today. We're doing a real special series on highlighting the most innovative educators throughout the United States. We're in beautiful San Diego, California, and we're highlighting someone so special, a principal at Perris Union, Erika Tejeda. Welcome to the show today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're really excited. I've heard so many great things about you, and we really wanted to get you on the show because your perspective as a first-gen student and then now impacting in a high school-only district is very unique in California. And we just want to really thank you, first off, for all the students you've helped over the years. So appreciative of all the impact you've made on society. And every student that you've helped graduate that may have not with your leadership, now they have a better chance to be able to contribute to an incredible life, be a great husband, father, wife, sister, worker. Thank you so much for that. Why did you fall in love with education? What did you like about it?
I hated education.
Let's go.
I'm the baby of 5 4 older brothers and myself, a very low income school, and there wasn't that connection or that relationship. So if you were absent from school, the teachers didn't care. And the foundation of education isn't just academics, but it's building relationships, meaningful relationships. And so I didn't feel like I belonged. I had a teacher in high school tell me, why are you here? Like, people like you belong having babies or on government assistance. Your people shouldn't be here. Those kids, it really, and it eats at your soul.
This was a teacher.
This is teachers who would say things like this. Wow. I had a teacher tell my brother, people like you belong incarcerated.
Oh my goodness.
In high school. And so when you have teachers who don't look like you, and they don't understand your background, and they don't understand where you're coming from, you begin to lose that connectedness. And so I was a troubled teen at some point. I would ditch occasionally, but I started working at 15 too, because culturally it's what you do. The point is to help your family financially. So in high school I had 3 jobs and just working to pay for what I needed so I wouldn't be a burden for my parents. So I went to junior college, got my bachelor's degree, and I wanted to be in the FBI. Because I was bilingual, and I was like, si se puede. And so then I became a single mom, married, divorced within a year, became a single mom, and I didn't want my daughter to be a statistic. And so my mom said, look, mija, people are always going to have kids. Why don't you go into education? I'm like, because I hate those fuckers. I hate them. And she's like, don't be like them. So I went to my previous principal and said, hey, I want a job. And he's, okay, what do you want to do? And I was like, I can teach Spanish. I have this degree. So I went through National University and got my master's and credential and became an intern. As a Spanish teacher, 23 years old, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here? These kids are terrible. But then I wanted the kids to be a reflection of me and to build those connections. So I fell in love with education. And you have to take a pulse of the room. And it wasn't always, we're going to learn how to conjugate a verb today. It was like, what's going on in your neighborhood? Are you okay?
Yes.
How are you? How's your soul? Yes. And you start to build and create capacity among students. And so then I went into administration as well, because if you're not part of the solution, then you're the problem. And I didn't like how I was treated as a teacher, how my colleagues were treated, but I didn't like how our kids were treated either. And so to me, representation matters. And when I can call that parent and speak to her in Spanish about her child, and I can have the conversation, say, mijo, I know what you're going through. It's hard. It's hard that you have to work, but the only way out of poverty is education. 100%. The only way to better yourself. And so first generation Chicana, first in my family to go to college, the first in my neighborhood to do certain things. And so I suddenly became a role model for people. And it was just impactful. And it wasn't so much, it's never the Erika show. It is about what can I do for you? So I've hired previous students as teachers.
That's so cool.
Because it's so cool to see them.
Such a full circle moment.
I've gone to weddings, and I've gone to baptisms, and I've gone to graduations. And just, it's a family that you create. But it's this love that I have for what I do and the people that I serve and the people who look like me, right? Like the red lipstick, the hoop earrings. I am so proud of my culture and who I am. And I would love to share that and say, no, we're not statistics. We can do so much more. So
that was well said. Beautiful. I love the intro. I think you really hit the nail on the head. Like I always talk about this love-hate with education is you should have frustration and anger on what's been done in education and have a desire to make it better because you should love the opportunity to help people learn and be the best version of themselves. That's exactly what you said. And I love that aspect of it. Where do you see more innovation happening? What do you want to do differently? You're very passionate. I love that. What do you like education to look like in 15 years?
I had the opportunity to open up a brand new high school. 4 years from the trailer up. I got to see the school be built, and we created a pathway school. So every student is in a pathway. So it is innovative in the sense that it's not. So in high school, you have the haves and the have-nots. You have AP tests. You have, if your parents have agency, then you know how to get into the AP classes, the advanced classes. And so this school, we're a CTE pathway school. We're one of the few in California. But every student starts in a CTE pathway, and they start earning college credit their freshman year.
Wow.
Because they're taking industry-specific classes that have direct articulation with the junior colleges in our area, or community colleges. And so we have 4 pathways, and it's that innovation because it's no longer the haves and the have-nots. It's more the cans and the won'ts, right? And so that's the big difference. Every kid has access, and you have to have access to programs, regardless if you're special education, if you're a newcomer, if you're EL, if your family doesn't know how to help support you. That's where we come in as a school. And so to be able to provide that for you. The other thing is not everyone's going to college.
No, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it at
wrong
all
with that.
because our world functions with so many different trade schools and so many skills. And so that's what my school does. It provides for you these CTE pathways. You can be CPR certified. You can get your guard card. You can learn front of office medical, coding, gaming.
Wow, that's really cool.
It's so awesome, right? And so maybe you're not going to college, but you can go into a career. Now I'm giving you some tools. It's about giving you the tools you need. And I think that's where education needs to go. We function so much in education as a one-room schoolhouse, 1800s. And
Yes, the Prussian learning method from the 1800s where you sit at a desk all day, told what to do, and you're trained to work in a factory.
And that's it. And people think that's rigor. That's not rigor. Rigor is collaboration and getting kids to think deeper and outside of the box. And if you don't fit, if outside of the box is uncomfortable, then stretch it out, right? And so we have to be innovative, and kids learn differently, especially after COVID.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so they can get all the answers on their phone. They don't need an educator anymore. But we need to keep the excitement and give them the life.
Well, and that emotional support. That's a big piece. I love that you brought that up because we talk about constantly that Netflix turned 27 years old this year. The kids have grown up with Netflix, Instagram.
27?
Yeah. Yeah, Netflix, it's going fast. They have TikTok now. Gen Alpha entered high school this year. So 2010 is the oldest year of Gen Alpha. So the 14-year-olds, the second birth year in your freshman year, they're Gen Alpha. And so we need to focus more on those interpersonal relationships. Yes. The one-on-one time, the stuff like this, you're getting to know each other. And you talked about how you really care about your students. You actually asked them, how's your day going? Or talk to the parents like, hey, what's going on at home? Can you talk about how important that is and how we need to bring more of that emotional connection in education? How important EQ is. You clearly have very high EQ.
Oh my gosh. So it's a generational thing, right? This is year 24 of education for me.
Thank you for your service. That's huge.
I'm embracing my
silver anniversary in a year, yeah.
The silver's here. We're blonde. We're going to fake it, right? We're going to fake it. But it's a school. It's the school of thought where before the school was just a place for you to learn. It's 7:30 to 3:30. We're 8:05 to 3:30 with California now. Yeah. But it was just a place where you come and do your time, like prison, right? Come and do your time, go home, do homework and things like that. That was probably not a good analogy. I'm so sorry. We're gonna move.
Hey, don't worry. If you don't like it, we could cut it. And if you like it, we could keep it.
Oh, I don't care.
Yeah, because I think it's interesting. You talk about that, and obviously these are all analogies and extreme cases, but there are similarities because it is a very controlled environment. Yes. You wake up, you get there, and when the bell rings, if you're not there, you're punished, and then you have lunch together.
We don't say punish. We say there's consequences.
Oh, good. Okay, see, there we go. See, learning the proper language of today. Yeah, so what's your type of discipline strategy with the kids? How do you work with that? What's the consequences?
I kind of digress, but I want to talk about the EQ.
Yeah, let's go back to the EQ.
Because I think it's so important because I think it lacks. Yeah. And part of being a human being is being human. And our kids are carrying emotional backpacks. And they're invisible.
Good analogy, yeah.
And they're invisible. And we don't know what trauma they're bringing to school. We don't know if they're homeless. We don't know if a parent passed away. We don't know what goes on in the home. And so I really want to touch on that is the school has now turned into a place full circle of mental health. We have a social worker. We have a counselor, not an academic counselor, but a success counselor. It's going to help you. Why are you struggling in classes? And so we've tapped more into helping kids with resources than ever before because that emotional support is imperative to their success. It's the whole child now. We're not just worried about A through G requirements, which is California to graduate. we're worried about your mental and social and emotional health. After COVID, kids couldn't even look at each other in the face, and we contracted with a company that's amazing. And we had to do these workshops with kids to how to interact again. Yeah. And so that part, being able to provide family with resources. With regard to consequences, see, I can transition.
Oh, that was incredible. Right. Great memory. Wait, do you want to give the company a shout out who did a great job?
It is the ANEW project. And
the ANEW project.
Juan Arambol
Yep.
was my student.
Oh.
I was a Spanish teacher, and he has created this amazing company that taps into kids' social, emotional well-being.
Make sure you go find them, everyone.
Yes, find them.
Support this company. They're clearly helping a lot of people.
A lot of people, and they're local, and they're just great people with what they do. But the consequences, it used to be so dogmatic, right? This is what you do, this is what you get. Now there's ed code that stops so many different things from happening. So it's a lot of phone calls and interventions and trying to figure out what's going on versus you just don't want to be in class. Why don't you want to be in class? And then it goes back to that relationship with the teacher, right? If the teacher's engaging, and I mean, being a teacher is hard. You're on stage 6 hours a day trying to entertain, give your best. And sometimes your best isn't good enough for that kid, unfortunately. But it's trying to figure out what can we do to support and how can I keep you in class? So it's no longer 10 years ago, you could suspend a kid. It's called California Education Code 48900K, and it was like disruption and defiance. But you look historically at who were the disruption and defiance kids, and it was our Black and brown boys, right? And so it's that engagement piece. So the ed code has changed to help support kids, but we have to become more innovative and more creative on what the consequences are going to be.
So for that, and I love that you brought that back to perspective here, how do we better help those students? What can we do as a collective? What can we do even better than we've done the last 5 years? Like, what do you really see the future going towards?
I had to get political.
Go ahead. Hey, this is your forum. This is your forum. I'm here to support freedom of speech and you being able to say whatever you want.
So, feminist over here, I think the problem is that we love to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what's going to stick with the government. And so we give all of this funding and then you cut all of that funding back. So it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So when you don't have sustainable programs because of funding, because you don't have sustainable funding, you never get an opportunity to see if something's going to work or not.
Yeah, 1 or 2 years is not enough. You have to see a long-term vision.
You have to. And so there's so much change. There's uncertainty with the Department of Education. There's so much uncertainty with budget in California, right? We had a lot of money, and then we had the May revise. And so they cut back so many funds. And now you have to be creative. How are we going to have a system that works for kids that's sustainable?
I love that. You did talk about going to community college. I'm a community college grad as well. Why don't more kids take that route? How can we encourage that to the people listening? Like, what a great route. How much that was able to pathway yourself into an incredible 4-year institution. Community colleges are absolutely amazing. I love that you have the connection with the CTE pathways to these community colleges. Talk about the layer that we think community college can continue to be able to help our youth.
100%. I think there's a stigma with community college. I think everybody wants to go to UC Berkeley. I want to go to Stanford. Everybody wants to play in the NFL from high school football, right? Everyone's going to do it. And I think it's bridging that gap and letting kids know you can get done with 2 years of college a lot cheaper, free in a lot of cases, by going to community college. And it's having people like us who have been through community college to brag about what it's done for us.
It's an amazing pathway.
Amazing. And it's word of mouth. Things happen by word of mouth, where we can say, I did it. And I think when you become vulnerable and use yourself as an example and have that transparency and know that it's good enough, that's where I think we can impact greater.
So, well, I always love to be able to connect so many dots here. You've had such a great story. You're so passionate about some of the things that didn't go as well in your high school experience and now bringing it to your leadership experience. When you talk about being a leader in your community and being so proud of your culture, how can we encourage more young people to really give back to their own cultures and be really proud of who they are?
I think it comes with pride. And again, it's generational. It's not being embarrassed of where you come from, but being proud of where you're going and who you are becoming as an individual. And so I think it's empowering our students, our youth, by empowering ourselves and being proud of our culture, Colombiano, Mexicana. Yes, and so being proud of our heritage and our contributions. We have ethnic studies coming to California as the contributions our people have made And so I tell kids all the time, I tell my Chicano students, if they identify as Chicano, my Mexican American students, I'm like, did you know that Mendez versus Westminster was before Brown versus Board of Education and laid the foundation, for desegregation of schools? My mom was a farm worker, and in Corona, they picked oranges, but they were only allowed to swim on the pool in the pool on Fridays because they would clean it right after the Mexicans got out of the pool. And so you think about those stories and the impact that it has. And I tell people I'm living my ancestors' wildest dreams. Yeah. I have surpassed anything they ever hoped for our people, for our lineage. And that's the hope I have for my kids. I'm like, I worked too hard for you to be mediocre. Our job is to better ourselves and empower each other and cheer for each other instead of saying, oh, there you go. You think you're better than us? Heck yeah, you're better. Keep on doing it because you're putting our people on the map in a positive, amazing stance and point of view.
I love your perspective and passion. I think one thing I always like to culminate these conversations with is, out of all the people you've been able to help in your career, and again, we thank you so much for that, any really fun, illuminating final story of really helping a singular student you'd love to shout out? And you don't have to name them if you don't want to, but around one of their journeys and something that could really inspire our listeners around the power of education.
So I was a new teacher, and I had a parent-teacher conference, and I told this parent, your kid's just an ass. Like, your kid is not nice. No, I'm not. And I was like, you're a jerk. And so we have become the best of friends. He's an adult. He is in law enforcement. I went to his graduation from the academy. I went to his graduation with his bachelor's degree.
Wow.
And now he's come to my school. He's in law enforcement to give back. And so it is full circle. And I'm so proud of him. I call him Mijo all the time because they're always my kids.
Yep.
And I tell you will always be my kid. And so just to see the amazing things my kids are doing just fills me with joy and pride. And they remember me, right? They're in one way or another. I've gone to a restaurant like, you were my principal. Was I mean to you? And they're like, you expelled me. And I'm like, sorry, but it was my fault. But they understood. And it was like, it wasn't bad in the sense where it was like, you messed up, but how can we make it better? So I love what I do. I love being in education. Can you believe the full circle, right? I love education.
You love education. Created it, and now she loves it.
Yes. And the things we can do for our youth, because regardless of the phone and TikTok and Instagram, we are still essential in developing the minds of the future.
1,000,000%. And Erika, I love your stories, love your passion, and I'd love to be in your high school if I could relive again. And I just really want to thank you again for your time. And it's really inspiring to see education. It's not a 4-year decision. It's a 40-year decision. It impacts for your life. And seeing Erika in the community continually interacting with their students from decades ago, that's really powerful. And so
decades?
Decade. I thought, yeah, hey, we're really appreciative. We want to highlight the most innovative educators throughout the United States. Where can we find you on social?
You can't.
Okay, fans, you cannot find her on social, but we will root for her and Perris Union. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. It was so nice meeting you. Thanks.